Okay there guys, so what's up? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this very different video than usual. This is going to be a, well, I guess a retrospective video by the time this goes up. As you will see in a moment, what I'm actually doing here is taking a last long and fond farewell look at Brave Frontier. This is a mobile game that was originally released way back in the day, probably like 2012, 2013 when it first came out, and it's finally closing, very sadly. It will be midnight today, the 27th, Pacific Standard Time, or Pacific Daylight Time, whatever it is. I don't understand the American times, but basically 8 AM tomorrow morning for us in the UK. And so, yeah, you can see we've about 13 hours left on it at the moment, and we can actually go in and read the notice that the devs have left us. And it's very sad. This was one of the very first games that mobile games that I ever spent money on that wasn't a pay-for upfront game. This is the first gacha, I suppose, that I spent any money on. And even though the formula has been, successfully repeated many times, and we see it very much in games nowadays such as Genshin Impact, this was one of the first, certainly on the mobile scene, and at the time it was huge. I remember watching videos, shout out if they're still around. I know I certainly used to watch the videos of DeBearsFan. DeBearsFan06, I believe, was their YouTube handle. So I just wanted to have a look through some of these elements that made this game so fun, what made it the game that I actually wanted to spend money on. As a big JRPG fan in general, a lot of the stuff really stood out to me as things that were fun. And considering that the game, even though it does have a lot of PvP elements, it was never pay to win. There was never a real focus on having to spend money to get far in the game in terms of either PvE or PvP content. You can see here, there's just the little story elements in between each stage were absolutely fantastic. They're all really well animated, the music is really good, and whilst the battles themselves, admittedly now, with the kind of characters that we've got, obviously power creep in a game that is, 8 years old, 9 years old now as it's closing is ridiculous. So the battles now are just a breeze, considering that you can get characters who are 8 stars who are facing off against 2-star mobs basically. So yeah, this is nothing. You can see here we have standard sort of battles, and even the bosses are nothing really until you get onto the much higher levels of the game, or the special bonus events and raids and the like. Unfortunately, a lot of that content we already can't touch because the seasons finish, at the end of certain weeks or at the certain resets, and we won't be able to get back into them today, unfortunately, because they've finished for the week, and so they've finished for good, which is a grand change, because some of the content on here was really, I wouldn't say it was stand out and award winning or anything, but it was certainly special and fun, and certainly made the game unique enough that it did last as long as it had. I mean, many mobile games that started before then or at the same time have long since bit the dust. So for it to have carried on as long as it did, and to only be finishing now, is a real testament to how much people did enjoy this game. And I was certainly one of them. So we're just having a look at some of the basic mechanics here. You can see the characters have several specials. They can go into Super Brave Burst Mode, which is like the special move, ultra special move, and then they can go into Overdrive, where they can build up their ultimate move. All of these different things were brought in at different levels, so kind of like native all characters getting tier 2 and native tier 2s, and then tier 3s and transcendence in Marvel Future Fight. It was very much a case of a star system here, where characters were first 5-star was like the big deal, and then 6-star, and then I think when I finished playing the game on my regular account, I think 7 stars had just come into the game. That was back in 2015, I want to say. And now, as the game is ending, we have 8-star on the variants. And there are ways that you can upgrade those, so they're like 8-star plus ultra kind of deal. So you can see, you go through these basic mobs, you get to the end of each stage, and then you face a boss. At the end of it, you're awarded items and money, and that's basically it. So here's the home page. You can see we'll go in and we'll have a look at the units. Oops, I obviously haven't turned my Discord notifications off, so we'll get rid of that. So you can see all the different types of units that we have that you collect from fighting and beating them, and you can adjust them so by level and by rarity. So here you can see at the top, obviously we have the highest ones at 8 stars, 7 stars, and then we have some of the rarer enhancement and evolution materials. In this game, the only way you can level up is by fusing units into each other. You can't gain experience from going into the battles themselves. They have to be fused with other units in order to level up, which is a nice way of progressing, really, because rather than having to grind out battle after battle after battle to level up each character, you can just fuse, higher level characters into them, or those large crystal ones you can see at the bottom there, the red crystals. We shall take this character and we'll pop those crystals into him, and I'll show you how that works. So we're just going to click on this, see if we get a normal success or a mega success or super success. Depending on the different types means how much the multiplier is. Okay, so just standard success, so that's just one time. So you can see there the level increases. Then obviously you've got the hit points, the BB level is their Brave Burst or special move level, and then you obviously have attack, defense and recovery. If you were to get a mega success, it's a 1.5% multiplier for the amount of experience gained, and super success is a 2 times multiplier. So that's the fusion element. So that's how you level up the characters. Obviously the goal is to take them to max level, and then once you have done that, let's find a character who we've already got. You can also work on building up their Brave Burst. So you can see here we've got a character and 2 identical species of Sahagwine, and if you fuse the exact same species into itself, then you can rank up their Brave Burst or special move. Now for some of the rarer characters, that would mean having to just either grind out the event a lot of times and hope that you got lucky, until they then brought in burst frogs, which means that you could use those to level up their special move. So once you have a character up at level, then you can look to go forward and evolve them. And let's see, have we got anyone here ready to evolve? Yes, we have Thunder Warrior Ease. So if we click on evolve, you can see that there are other units that you have to use for evolve. I don't have all of them, so I can't show you this one, unfortunately, and I'm not gonna, unfortunately, because it's RNG, there's no guarantee of getting a Thunder one. I could just be here for ages, so I'm not going to show that, but I think you can get the idea that you evolve it up from each star, so a 4-star character becomes 5-star, etc, etc. So that's the deal there. You can see you have 10 slots, which is great, 10 squad slots. If they had that in Marvel Future Fight rather than 3 and then having to pay, this one you just level up through the game just by playing the game, and it unlocks more slots till you get the maximum amount. And you can have totally different teams for what kind of battles you're facing. You can have a team that's mostly defensive, mostly offensive. You can have sorted by elements, so an all fire team. So if you're on an earth stage, you can have that. And then you have these spheres that you can equip, basically a custom gear slot like with Marvel Future Fight. You basically can equip one or more of these. You can see they go up in quality and rarity, each of them giving more improved stats than before. So you can see this one here is pretty good, fairly decent bonuses and critical rate improvement, so we can equip that. And ooh, that jewel is quite a nice one as well. I wonder if we can equip that on anyone in our team that we haven't as yet. I don't remember getting that. Oh, I can give it to the twins. So let's give that one to them. For all the good it's going to do in the last few hours that the game is live, but still, that's not the point. We're just here, obviously, to have a look and have a look at the mechanics of the game and see how it worked. And it was a fun part of it. They did actually change the game. You can see here, this character has got two spheres equipped. You could get a sphere frog, and basically that would allow you, once you fused with it, to equip two. So again, using Marvel Future Fight as an analogy, that would be like having two custom gears. So a CTP of Rage and a CTP of Authority would make someone pretty overpowered for both PvE and PvP. And then again here you can see the different levels of their special move. They have 3 different levels, and then in order to further increase their stats, once they were at level 8 stars, you could then spend points that you could acquire to further increase all their parameters, which really led to some overpowered units in the game now. I don't know if that's part of the reason why the game is closing, because it's just run its life and the power creep has got to the point where it's unsustainable anymore, without rewriting the whole game to start from those new base levels. But yeah, so there we are. That's the unit side of things. Then obviously you have the sell unit option. So you can get units. Obviously you have a limit of how many you can get, and if you're over the limit you can then sell them. You can get specific units which are obviously just there for the money, which you can sell specifically. Dual Kings and Dual Gods. So that's the unit side of things down. And next, yeah, you can see here there's different typings as well in the units and the new teams. You can see here this is a Lord. So basically, just like with most mobile games, or a lot of just games in general these days, a lot of the mechanics are based off of rock, paper, scissors. You know, you've got your elements, so instead of rock, paper, scissors, you've got fire, water, earth and lightning, and then in this you also have light and dark. Pretty much all games have that now, or some variant thereof. You could walk into any game, metaphorically speaking, but you could like log on to any game, and a lot of them you'll find either this exact one or a variant thereof. Now they did also have a substat, you can see with the typing, Breaker, Lord, Anima and Guardian. And Anima was good for magic dealers, Breaker was good for physical damage, Guardian was for your support type characters, and Lord was kind of like the Duff. It's supposed to be an all-round, but it wasn't really that great for anything, if I remember correctly. Again, it's been a long time since I played this, so apologies if that's not quite correct, but that's just certainly how I remember it. So you could get a character several times over and not have the right kind, and you'd be trying to get like a Breaker or Anima for the right sort of substats, whether it's recovery, attack or defense, whatever. So now we move into the town section, and this is where you have your different little farming areas for your passive farming of items. You would then use these items to build up either potions that you take into battle to actively use, or the spheres. You can see there's what's called the sphere house. You had to level it up, so the more you put into that, the higher level spheres you could then craft, and then equip. And again, with these 4 areas of passive farming, you can just level those up to get more materials and higher quality materials in there. So you can see synthesis is the item crafting area. So let's just take cure and high cure for example here. Cure, the most basic drops you can get in the game, green drops and green grass, and then you just combine those as such. And it's nice that you can just hold down the synthesize button and you see you just whip through crafting as many as possible here. Obviously there is an element of resource management in this game, which again appeals to a lot of people who do play RPGs, so that's always nice. It's not too uncontrollable. You can pay crystals. You can see in the top right corner you've got 3 different types of currency, in-game currency. You have crystals, you have gold, or Zell as it's called in this, and then you have karma. And everything that you do in terms of like crafting or evolving and enhancing characters requires one of the different 3 currencies. But you can improve your resource limits by using crystals, which I always found, because you get so many good characters in the game through events and tickets from login bonuses, etc., that I spent more of my crystals on actually just increasing my thresholds for how much I could contain in the town and in my units, rather than actually spending those crystals on the gacha pools for rarer units. So you can see here, this is the sphere shop where you can craft the more, from starting off from the very basic spheres, and again it works on a system of you build up a 1-star, and then to make the 2-star you have to use the 1-stars, etc, etc, until you get onto these kind of the 3, the 4, and then leading on to the very rare spheres, which require drops from either specified limited time events or from, you know, high-end game content. But it was something that you could progress toward. It was something that you could look at and say, okay, if I can get my characters to this level, I can then unlock that content, and then I can gain these items which will help me again improve my level and improve my characters. So there was progression in the game. You know, they did release quite a fair bit of content for it. You can see here, if we go into the event bazaar, all the different things, all the different events, the raids, all the kind of arenas and things that you could do, which would drop all these, you know, special materials that you could get. And then finally we have the sound shop, which is nice because it means you can go in here and you can play any of the music. Unfortunately, when it says download, it doesn't mean download to your device. And it's a real shame because this music is really good. Some of these tunes, you know, people put a lot of effort into making these songs. I'm not quite sure if you go so far as to call the soundtrack iconic as you would with, say, Final Fantasy, but the music is certainly very good. It's varied, it's, you know, it's thematic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I don't have the Zell to buy all of the tracks here to play all of them just to give a demonstration. But yeah, it was a very good soundtrack, and that's probably one of the things that I'm going to miss, along with the art style, the most when the game goes offline at the end of today's day. So that is the town section. The shop, as you can see, is already closed. They do that with all mobile games. I don't know if it's part of Google and Apple's terms of service, but when a mobile game is announcing that it is shutting down, then a month before all purchases are stopped. So now we have the summons. These are ones that you could obviously spend the gems on, or if you've got the item or tickets, selector tickets from login events, etc., you can get them. I don't recognise any of the newer ones, but some of these legacies, I recognise some of these names, some of the old 7 stars like Kulik. I definitely remember that name. But again, obviously, when you get new characters every month or couple of months, and you do that for several years that I haven't been playing, there's bound to be a whole plethora of characters I don't remember. Certainly there's probably been a lot of guest characters in the game. I'm not sure if that ever had anything to do. See, even the animation here for pulling a 7-star, this mega rare character, is really pretty. Yeah, it's a shame that we're going to lose all of this. And she's a breaker as well, so we've got the nice typing on her. But yeah, I remember back in the day when Hatsune Miku was one of the guest characters in this. I think if you look back on one of my very first video on the channel, actually, is a short, because back in the day you could do there was video support for animated shorts that you could upload straight to YouTube. Unfortunately, they got rid of that with newer phones and newer devices. So whilst I had that on the Samsung S3 back in the day, nowadays on my Samsung S20 FE they don't have that. So we just do some summon results here. These are the honor summons. These are the ones that you get for working with your friend list. Basically you get honor points every time you take a friend into battle, and then you can do these honor summons, so you can get, like you see there, items for either sell for money or for enhancing your units. Then we have the friend tab, so you can send and receive daily gifts. Not anymore, obviously, but it was a nice little, it was a nice area to add. You had a guild area and you had your friend list, so there were, whilst there was no chat function like in a lot of games we saw since then, you can see here that you just had your basic settings and info. And whilst there were no big chat functions for being active, there was an element of camaraderie with the guilds, etc. It's a shame. I'm going into the unit archive here to have a look at the units, and I really wanted to dig out my old main account. Unfortunately, it was linked to Facebook, which I haven't used in years. So whilst my main account would have had this one pretty full, rather than all these question marks, unfortunately Facebook has changed a lot. I went on it earlier just to have a look to see if I could get back in, and boy, it has changed so much. I couldn't even get into it. It was like, we need your birth certificate and your driving license and your passport and your dental records and your marriage certificate, even though you're not married, and a blood sample and a stool sample and rights over your firstborn child in order to access Facebook. And I'm like, dude, I am not doing all of that just to get onto Facebook for 30 minutes just so I could quickly reclaim my old Brave Frontier account to show you all the characters that I used to have and say, hey look, I used to have Hatsune Miku and a Pampress Selena on my old account. As fun as that would have been, it just wasn't worth it for the sake of it. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. And it'd probably be more annoying because looking at all of these gaps here, if I'd have kept playing the game, it would be nice to see this completely full. I probably had it about half full back in the day, but obviously they've added a lot more units to it since then. And if I was sat here with the game finishing in a few hours as it is, and I still had, say, 20% to go, knowing that I'd never be able to finish it, that would be super annoying. I know that's a common bugbear with Marvel Future Fight for the people who are, and we know that there is a large selection of player base in all games, whether it's mobile games or console or PC games, any type of video game, who are completionists and they want to collect everything in the game. And when you do lock off certain portions of content, whether it's because you can no longer get them because of licensing, if it was a limited time event like the Hatsune Miku thing was, or in the case of Marvel Future Fight, there are certain uniforms that will never ever be released again, like the Captain Marvel, I believe it was the Secret Wars uniform that you had to spend a fortune in order to get, and even that was RNG based, to to do with the cards back in the old card crafting days. But you can see here we can actually go back and look at some of the older ones, or the older events that did happen that we do still have access to. They don't have the Halloween Pump Press Selena one, which is a shame because that was one of my personal favourites, but they do have the old Fee and Fang Christmas event. I believe this was a Christmas event. I want to say it was a Christmas event. Could be wrong. Let me know. Correct me in the comments if I am. But it was nice because, as well as having these guest characters turn up, they would also write, a little story for them, so you get a little bit of text. And again, the artwork is probably like the main thing that really is a shame to lose, because whilst it definitely had a very unique anime art style at the time, obviously it's not completely unique nowadays. You see that in a lot of mobile games, especially since this game first came out really before Final Fantasy was available on mobile games. Obviously you could run emulators back in then, and obviously still now. But at the time it's what made it stand out, to have such a nice aesthetic to go with the JRPG tropes. And when you had such it's a shame. This boss was actually hard when the game first came out, but obviously, like I say, Power Creep being as it is, she just gets one shot. But the art is fantastic, and I don't know if they ever did bring out an art book, but they should have done. Luckily, that's the good thing about the internet, is even though the game the servers will go offline very shortly, the artwork will still be online. And there is some really, really amazing fan art. I remember looking up at the time some of the characters. The fan art out there is absolutely fantastic, and that will obviously still live on. For plot reasons, as you can obviously see looking at this screen here, clearly we like it for the plot as people of culture. But the contrast in styles there between the adult and then chibi Fang is certainly a juxtaposition. But that is what made the game fun. It definitely appealed to all different types of fans. And you can see there are certain ones where the game went on and each stage got harder and harder. They don't have the Pump Press Selena one. That's a real shame. That was my favourite. I'd like to be able to go back and do that one. I can understand why they don't have the Tsune Miku one. Okay, we'll go into the second stage and see if we can actually collect. I think it's either the second or third stage, depending on how many there are. I think it can be the earlier events, there are only 2 stages, and then as the events went on in time, they added 3 stages, and you had to repeat the stages over and over and hope that you got lucky and get a drop for the boss character. But then also you'd be looking to get drops of the super rare items, which would allow you to craft the more rare limited time spheres or limited time items that would be really just broken and overpowered when you take those into battle. Again, that was more for the higher content stuff, like the raid battles and the mock boss summon battles. But again, with Power Creep being as it is, it doesn't look like we kind of really need them, certainly for this content anyway. They're flying through. I mean, the mobs you could expect to fly through anyways, but I imagine they're going to fly through the boss in a minute as well, so we shall see. So let's see if we get lucky and actually get the drop. I mean, I could be wrong, and they could have just changed it over the years so that the drop weight is guaranteed. I'm going off of my past experience. You can see, yeah, we got the drop 4-star. Then again, you'd be looking, no thank you, sorry Teddy, ignore that message for now. But back before they brought in burst drops, you'd have to run that several times, hope to get many duplicates so that you could then fuse it in to build up that brave burst layer. And then you got a nice little bit of a story. It was a bit cheesy and a bit cliche. There are some very interesting characters in the game. You have, I think, 3 or 4 main characters. You have Tillith the goddess, who always appears at the start of every different stage on some events. You can see here, yeah, as time went on, it went to 3 events rather than just 2. Then you had Carl, who was your best friend character. Then you had Seria, who appears in the arena. Hopefully we might see her later if I level up enough. So now we come to the raid area. I haven't been into this yet, I don't think, on this account, because I've only had the account again, like I say, for the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to show how the arena stuff works as an aspect that Marvel Future Fight could use when they look to rework Timeline Battle. I don't think we're going to be able to do anything from this today, so hello, yeah, nice to meet you, Elise. But you can see the story, they did put effort into the writing of the story. Some of the tropes are a little anime, to say the least, but again, it works. It works with the theme and the aesthetic of the game, and it was all part of the fun. The writing certainly wasn't bad by any means. A little cheesy maybe, but yes, thank you for telling us all about this. But the question is, are we actually being able to get into a raid, or is it not going to let us because it's over for the week? And if so, over for good. Okay, let's go into quick start and see if we can get anything going. Yep, down. Nothing available. That's a shame. But it'd be nice to have shown that, because that was more of a strategic RPG element where you had to go to certain areas on a map. You had to look for the boss, you had to use various tactics to beat the boss, and in fact you had to actually go into this area, Imperial City Randall, and I think at the bottom there, we'll have a look at that in a minute, we'll start at the top, but you had to synthesize certain items that would actually make the boss show up. But it was nice here. This is kind of like your skill preview and unit archive, where you could look at each character, you could move the character model around. It would give you their backstory, and then you could also go in to the effects and have a look at their special skills, and you could see the evolution of each of them, of their special move, limit break, whatever you want to call it, brave burst, at different levels. So this was obviously the 3-star version, then you could look at the 4, 5, 6, etc, etc, different star versions of each character. And again, I just really like the music in this area. You said that and then the music stops. And then you could also go back and replay the story as well. So that would just take it to the beginning of the journey, the very start of the game. And this is the goddess Tillith. She always shows up at the start of every area. Moans it's either too hot, too cold, too sandy, too windy, too wet. And then she buggers off. So you're left thinking, no, she's not very powerful at all. But she does come into her own later in the game. Unfortunately, we're not going to make it that far in today's last look to see any of that, which is a shame. I do believe you can actually get her as a character as well, once you beat enough trials. But alas, that is not to be. We'd either see one of 4 characters, like I said, we'd either see her, or we'd see Carl the best friend, or Seria, who is much more the tsundere trope character. So then we would have the different raid and Frontier Hunter, Frontier Gate. These are all the different events that were going on at the time. All of these different events that you could do on top of your main standard story and PvP elements to receive extra bonus characters, bonus items, etc. So they did throw a lot at the game to keep it going as long as they did. So it's a real shame to see it going. Even now in this, as we're just picking up our keys, you can see there's a little slot machine section. You didn't spend money, you had to earn the medals that you used to put into the slots. And then they brought in these two little mini games too, which are great. One is like, this one I think is WhackaMole. I only played these once before when I saw them here the other day. So let's see, I'm probably going to be terrible now. So you can see the first section, you just have to hit with a corresponding character. And then it changes in a minute so that it's the element, but rather than being the element, the corresponding element, you have to hit them with their weakness. So obviously if fire comes up, you have to hit them with water. If lightning comes up, you have to hit them with earth. If dark comes up, you have to hit them with light, etc, etc. And it does get a bit frantic. Obviously it looks fairly easy now, but it does get a lot harder. So you can see now we're going into element mode, so light is dark, water is lightning. You can see I've had to stop and think for a second and I've ended up missing it. So it does take a while to get into the routine. You can see it's starting to speed up as the time is ticking down as well. I'm sure there are some people out there who are just blitzing through it who don't even need to like look twice. But I think at my age I'm having to think twice before each one, and you can hear that little beep beep. I didn't realise until playing this that if you accidentally hit one of the mimics, or if you hit Tillith, you actually lose points or Zell or Karma for doing it, so I had to avoid those and not hit it. So we're not going to be breaking any records or claiming any #1 spot before the game dies, unfortunately. But it was just it's just a nice added little bonus game that they added in here, which was, I don't know when they brought that in, but it's a very fun little addition. Certainly something to do to keep you entertained for 5 minutes. If you're waiting on a new raid or, you know, a dungeon to be open or something. And then we have this, Speed Rush, which is very similar to different solitaire games. I can't remember the name of which solitaire it is, but you can see you either have to go sequentially in terms of the same number, or one higher, one lower, or the same type, so like light, dark, fire, etc, etc. So you can see we're really struggling here. And obviously as it goes on and it gets faster, the time gets faster, the enemies get harder. And the amount of cards corresponds to what moves your characters will do. So light and dark, I suppose you really want to get it more light and dark. And you can see we get Brave Bursts as well. So we do get the special moves available. I'm terrible at it, really bad. I spend, I think, far too much time trying to plan out the next move, just taking it like normal solitaire without remembering that there is a very strict countdown timer there. And then try to go faster and then end up just messing up, so it's spending far too long looking at each one and thinking, what comes next after 1? 2? So it definitely keeps you on your toes. It's good for the old mental acuity. But yeah, sadly that's about it. We won't be breaking any records on this run, I don't think. We're through to the last stage now, so not too much longer to put up with it. Let's see, we get to shuffle there because we didn't have any good matches, or I couldn't see any matches even though there probably were some there. I think we did not too bad there in that last one. And there we go. Let's see how we did. If we can get above 60,000 like we were in the last game, I shall be impressed. Hey, top 15,000. That's better than I was expecting, to be honest. Nothing exciting, but hey, we won't complain with that. So yeah, so that's that area done. And then, what else have we got? Ah, yes. We have... No, this is the Summoner's Research Lab. This is where some of the high-end bosses in the game, in the story mode that you meet very gradually as you go through the story. You can come here and you face basically clone mock versions of them that Noel here has created. Basically, once you beat them, they then become your ally and you can use them. So it was great. I'm pretty sure the first three are Carl, Seria and Graydon's. I think this is where you get Tillith as well. But it was really difficult at the time, bearing in mind that the highest characters when this came out were either 5 or maybe 6-star characters. And you had to bring in certain items. There was one item, Goddess Angel or something, Angel Flute, something like that. That means instead of dying, you'd survive a knockout blow with 1 HP. And you had to bring it. And if you didn't guard on certain turns, like say there were 15 turns that the enemy took, and if you didn't guard on the right phase, your party would just get wiped out, and that was it, game over. So it was very, very tactical. You had to bring in a lot of good items as well as bringing in your best characters, and you had to plan your team accordingly. I remember having to watch the Bears fans guide for how to beat Graham the first time, because I just got wrecked every time. I thought, yeah, I'll just go in, DPS and one-shot it, and it doesn't quite work like that. I think the first one is Carl, so we shall take our party. We've got to see 3 squads there, and if your first party, you put all your effort into your first party, and then if you don't have anything left for your second and third, you can find yourself just getting absolutely wrecked. But now that we've got 8-star characters, we should see that this is a lot easier. I was expecting the first one to be relatively easy, but we'll soon see. Okay, so it is Carl. This is the best friend character. And you can see he's not doing any damage to us really, so we'll take him out. And this is just his first phase. I believe you get him down to a certain amount. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, he goes, yeah, you're strong, I'm not going to hold back. And then he evolves. Now, obviously with the characters we've got, we still shouldn't find any massive problems. But you can see my lower star character's already stunned and frozen out of action for a turn, which could have been costly. Luckily we can still one-shot him. And we get hit. Nice. But it was definitely nice to see a different element of, rather than fighting a bunch of mobs and then just a boss, you had to fight a harder version of a boss who had different tactics, and you had to actually go in with some strategy in mind. You couldn't just go in and just, you know, mash the buttons and expect to win. And it wasn't until like through trial and error that you could actually get through some of the harder content. I believe this one is Seria. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you until you actually go into it, but I don't want to keep you guys for too long, so I think we'll just leave that there for now. It was nice to go back and have a look at it anyway. And then this area, this was the spheres that you couldn't craft, like the special event stuff that you couldn't craft back in the town. You'd have to come here to do, and it would mean that only when you got drops from certain events or limited time logins, things like that, that you could make them. And this is the stuff that you had to take into raid battle. You had to come here to craft. So yeah, that was the Imperial City. We've seen Crest, we've seen raid. There's no guild anymore, so that just leaves the arena. And then we had a final last look at everything. So, okay, yeah, we evolved one of our units yesterday when I was playing, so we've gone over our cost limit. So we'll just remove twins, and we'll put in, let's put in Mifune. It doesn't really matter, he'll probably get killed, but we'll still win. We should win with the other characters we have on the team anyway. And it's just nice just to go back in and show you. I do like the way that they do PvP in this. Again, it is similar. I know Netmarble have a similar approach to the PvP system in 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross. But it's nice you just pick a separate squad that's completely set aside from the main gameplay, just PvP. This is a PvP team. You go in, fight against another team. Unfortunately, you don't control the team in this. But again, there are different areas in the Colosseum as opposed to the normal arena where you can do different things, and it is more specialised. And yeah, you see we've levelled up here. Sometimes when you get to certain levels you do get cutscenes with Seria which are quite humorous, where she does go on about how she doesn't really care about you and you're a big backer, blah 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 blah, but obviously she really does seem to care. And you see there that we got, because we leveled up, we did get a first time clear bonus of that Starblade. Now even if you drop back down from Breaker to Contender and then back up again, you won't get that reward, it's just a first time clear reward. So let's see how we get on with this team. And this one as well. And there we go. So you can see, while it's not the most strategy in terms of the actual gameplay, in terms of who you pick on your team, how you set your team out, who your leader is, there is still an element of strategy to it. And the fact that it's not real-time PvP, but you're just fighting other teams that, you know, other players have set, does make it a lot easier. Let's just go, let's see if we can find Seria. Because she is quite fun. Ah, it's not Seria, is it, in this stage? Nah, it's Nagina. Damn it. Yes, we know who you are, Nagina. This is the Sundere male friend. He likes to think that they're cool and popular and can do everything without you, even though you always show them up. And they secretly always do need your help and appreciate it. They just pretend not to. Yeah, it doesn't look like we'll be seeing Seria on our last day, but we saw all of our other main contenders and characters, so that's always nice. But you can see there, you do get nice cutscenes and nice animations in between each actual fight itself. So while the fights maybe are nothing special to write home about, they certainly put the effort into everything else. And there we go. That was it. So I just want to say, if anyone is still watching, especially if any of the devs or former devs, anyone who ever worked on the game is watching, thank you. You know, this game was a really great game. They put a lot of effort into it, and it's very sad to see it go. But with that, yeah, thanks very much to everyone involved in working on Brave Frontier, and I hope to see you guys again. Take care.